Okay, this variable is going to discuss counting and accumulating variables in Java. These are very common, very commonly used, very important when writing programs. And so we're going to go through a definition of these, and then we're going to demonstrate them being used in a program. And so the first one is a counting variable, which you've already talked about. So essentially, a counting variable, it tracks the number of times a particular event happens. So it keeps track of how many times a particular event happens. So if you're tracking how many times somebody says the word like in a conversation, you're going to be going 1, and then they say it again, 2, then they say it again, 3, 4. What are you doing? You're counting, you're increasing by 1. So you increase by 1 each time through the loop. So a counting variable is going to increase by 1 every time the loop is executed. And so we do that, and we've already shown that. We've already used this before. And that is, for example, count plus plus means 1 is being added to the variable count. Num of days plus plus, that means that 1 is being added to the variable num of days. Okay, so we've already done this before, but now the new thing is accumulating variable. The accumulating variable tracks a running total. It keeps track of a running total. And so, what is a running total? A running total is a total that increases or decreases, let's say, throughout the program. Let's say you're playing a basketball game, and you have a running total of points for each team happening. And so somebody shoots a 3-pointer, and now your team has 3 points, and then somebody shoots a 2-pointer, and so now your team total is 5. It's a running total. And let's say they shoot a couple of free throws. Well, shoot a free throw, now it's 6. Make another free throw, now it's 7. This is a running total. It's increasing or decreasing as time goes on. It increases or decreases by the same amount or by varying amounts. So it can be the same time each time through the loop, or it can be by varying amounts. So, for instance, a soccer game has total points. Well, that's increasing by the same amount each time because you only score 1 point at a time. In basketball, you can score on a 3-pointer, a 2-pointer, and on a free throw. So that's going to increase by different amounts each time. And so examples of our code is, and we've done this already, is that let's say that we have a total amount, and then we get a new amount to add to it. So we go the current amount plus the new amount. So that's just common code, is that this variable is an accumulating variable. So whatever its current value is plus the new amount is going to give us a new total amount. So let's say that you're trying to save so much total in a year. And so you start the year and you don't have anything. And so the first month you save let's say $50. And you started the month, you started the total saved for the year obviously was 0. So now you have 50. All right, and so now you have the total saved is 50. Let's say that the next month you save 60. And so now, I'm doing this backwards. It's supposed to be 60 and goes in here first. And then what happens is you have 50 now, and you're going to add the new month, which is 60. And so now you have $110. Let's go one more. The next month, you save $40. And so now let's see if we can get this. And now what happens is you have whatever you've saved so far, and you're going to increase it by how much you now save this month. And so now 150 is going to be assigned to total saved year. And so this is an accumulating variable because it's increasing as time goes on. Not necessarily by the same amount, in this case by different amounts. And so that's how that works. All right, so let's go trick-or-treating, and let's see how, let's kind of take some pseudocode and transfer it to actual code. And so when you go trick-or-treating, of course, you have a pillowcase, let's say, that you're gonna hold your candy in that you receive after each house or at each house. And so that pillowcase starts out, well, let's say that you want to see how much candy you get in the first 10 houses. We're going to write a program where it helps you to calculate the amount of candy that you get in the first 10 houses. And so you start out the night with, of course, an empty pillowcase. And so the pillowcase, of course, is going to be kind of like total candy. And so we're going to keep a running total. All right, because it's going to increase each time through the house, after each house. And so, we go in here, and so the candy received at house number 1, let's say, is 3. All right, so house number 1 and we get 3 pieces of candy. And so we're going to add 3 pieces to the pillowcase. So the pillowcase, which is the total candy, is now 3 pieces of candy. The next so now your pillowcase has 3. Okay, now the candy is going to be received, let's say, as at the second house. You go to your second house now, and let's say you receive 4 pieces of candy. So we're going to add 4 to that pillowcase. All right, so you see it's accumulating more and more as we go through. So now the pillowcase has 7. And then we're going to go to house number 3. And let's say we get 2 pieces of candy there. And we're going to add 2 to the pillowcase. So now we have 9. So it's accumulating. All right, so the thing to see here then is this is an accumulating variable. You should also see that you have a counting variable happening. So this would be, of course, a counting variable. And this is the accumulating variable. All right, and so that's how that works. So let's take this and put this into code. The reason I'm doing this is because this is actually a good way to decide how to write code for loops. Because if you manually go through it, so you see how what I just did is I just went through the first 3 houses. Notice I did not go through all 10 manually. I just did the first 3. And the reason why you might want to sit down and write pseudocode as to what's going to happen in the program. The reason why is because you're going to see what belongs in the body of the loop. Because remember, the body of the loop contains the code that is going to be repeated. Only the code in the body of the loop is repeated. And so what you do is you look in here and you go, well, what's being repeated? All right? So you have candy received at house 1. Okay, then we're going to add 3 to the pillowcase. So now the pillowcase has 3. And then we're going to go candy received at house 2. Now wait a second. I've heard that before. That's this. Then we're going to go add 4 to the pillowcase. Well, here we added 3. So you're doing the same thing. You're adding to the pillowcase. And then the pillowcase has, you're saying now how much is in the pillowcase. So we've repeated this. We've done this same thing twice. And then if you look at this last 3, these are the exact same things that we already did. So we're going to actually, this is 3 times that we are repeating or doing the same thing. So what that means is this part, which is being repeated, this goes in the loop body. So again, if you will write your code manually or pseudocode, like I've done right here, this is fake code. It's an algorithm. It's the steps that are being taken to solve a problem, to figure out how much candy we're getting in the first 10 houses. Okay, so you do that, and then what you can see is, well, what am I repeating? That's what goes in the loop. So let's take a look at, we're going to go with the for loop. The for loop, okay, has this line. So we have the loop control variable, count, and then, so count has to be initialized. Now the whole purpose of this line is to determine or to establish how many times the loop is going to be executed. That's why we use a for loop. We want to figure out how much candy are we getting in the first 10 houses. We're going to go to 10 different houses. That means we want the loop to iterate or be executed 10 times. So we're going to set up a counter. And the counter, which it's the reason why I use the word count is because it establishes, it separates it from all the other variables as specifically being used as a counter variable that's going to control the loop. And so we're going to start it at 1. Now, if it's going to increase by 1, and remember what we did on the page 2 of our notes is you look at these 3 aspects to determine how many times the loop is going to be executed. So if it's going to start at 1 and it's going to increase by 1 each time, then we want to go clear up to 10. So we want to include 10. So it's less than or equal to. So this right now, the only purpose of this right here is just to say we're going to execute this loop 10 times. All right? So let's go here. Let's erase a little bit of this. So, right? So then let's see what happens here. So notice then that it says the candy is received at house 1. let's see here. So the num of house, now all this, now I don't have all the code on here, so this is just part of the code. So we're going to have a variable, a code, that's going to declare the variable num of house, and it's going to be initialized to be start at 0, because that would make sense. And so when we write this code here, then this is going to increase num of houses by 1, so now you're going to have 1 in here. And the purpose of that is so that you can ask specifically how much at house 1. You have a variable call, and the current value is 1. So how much at house 1? So the user goes, oh, that's easy. And then the user is going to type, let's say, 4. They hit enter, and then your code, your compiler is going to kick in, it's going to read the 4, and it's going to store it in candy received. All right, and then the next line is going to be now our accumulating variable, and this is follows the pattern of accumulating variables. We're going to take whatever the current total is right now. And of course, this is the first house. We started with 0. And then we received 4. So now we have 4 pieces of candy in our pillow. So the total candy has accumulated out of 4. And then maybe in the code or in the loop, we want to actually say at the end of each house, we want to say how much we have. This is something that you can do either inside the loop after each time something changes, or you can wait to the very end and do it at the very end. Okay, so that's just up to the programmer or up to the instructions of the assignment. And so in here then, it says candy after, well, num of house. Here's a variable. Oops, I need to put quotation marks in here. After num of house, well, there's the use of that variable. After house 1, 1 house is total candy, and so variable call is going to print 4. So candy after 1 house is 4. All right, and then it goes in through the back door and increases count, and this is what remember, the purpose of this value or this variable is to keep track or to control the loop. This is the loop control variable. And then, so this happens, and then we go to here, and we check to see if we can go through the loop again. So 1 is less than or equal to, so now we're going to go through this loop again. And so, so what happens is, I'm not going to go through this whole thing. So num of house increases to 2. And so now that means that when we ask the question to the user, how much at house 2, now we can specify exactly which house it is. So how much at house 2? So that's what's going to print now. And let's say you get 5 pieces of candy. This code reads it, stores it in candy received, and then the accumulating variable gets increased by 5. And so now the total candy is now 4. So 4 plus 5 is 9. And so now total candy, the accumulating variable that's increasing each time through the loop, is now 9. And then we're going to say after candy after 2 houses, because the variable of num of house is 2, after 2 houses, and then it says 9. So that's what the loop does, having variables that change each time through the loop. That's what makes it easy to keep track of things. And so we do not write this code 10 times. We write it once and let the loop go through it 10 times. So that really eliminates a lot of code. See if we did this, imagine doing this 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a lot of code. All right? So this is what's nice about a code, a loop. And so anyways, so this is the idea. So hopefully you see what is the counting variables. Obviously the variable count is a counter, and it is a counting variable. So you have in this one program, you have one counting variable, two counting variables. You have one variable or a variable that is an accumulating variable. Now you have another variable, it's called, that's can be received. That is not counting or accumulating. So you're going to have some that are, some that aren't. All right, so your assignment then is going to be practicing this particular concept. And that's it.